In this video, we're going to be talking about the Minmatar Alpha Clone Frigate PvP fits. So, we're going to look at 4 frigates. I did have like 6 or so, maybe more, that I was looking at, but I didn't want to mislead you by giving you a bunch of ship setups and then you having to try to figure out which ones were the best and maybe going with one that was kind of good but not great. So I stuck with the 4 that I really like so that you have a better chance of success with 4 that I know are going to be pretty good for you. Keeping in mind this is an Alpha Clone ship and there's going to be some limitations. So our first setup is going to be the Slasher. It's a Tech 1 Minmatar frigate. I like this ship a lot. Out of all these fits, this might be my favorite, not because I think it's going to be the best of all of them, but because I just really like some of the features of it, and in the right circumstances, it'll probably do some really cool stuff. The reason for that is because it's very small, 30 meters of signature, that's the size of the ship, 30 meters signature radius, and the speed's nice, 1200 meters a second, 4.9 is the align time. That's just a measure of agility, really. So it's agile, it's fast, it's small, which means it's hard to hit. So if you look, frigate size guns have signature resolution of 40. Your ship is 30. So anytime you're below the signature resolution of a gun, you're going to take reduced DPS. That also works for missiles, but in a slightly different way. It's still the smaller you are and faster you are, the less damage you take. So cruisers have 120 signature resolution, which means you'll be taking a lot less damage, pretty much no DPS from a cruiser, so long as you're not sitting still. Which is why you're going to orbit in at about 500 meters on this ship. You set your orbit at 500. And very little hits you. Your main concern, as we're going to see, is going to be drones. So you can see here, this is the Tristan that I love from my Tristan guide. It's the Alpha Clone setup for it, so it's not quite as good as the full fit, but it's still pretty nice. And you can see that most of its DPS comes from drones. So because of that, we open a DPS browser here, or DPS graph. We're going to make the attacker the Tristan, the target Slasher. Target's going to be moving across the Tristan at 500. And you can see the DPS it's taking is going to be 89 roughly. Because you're going to try to orbit at 500. It's going to shoot out to around 2K-ish here. Now, we can lower that further with this, but not all that much, because most of this DPS we're taking is actually from the drones right here. You can see. So without the drones, he has nothing. So your first priority in this ship is going to be to kill the drones. But let's show you that on a different target to give you an even better example. How about my dual rep Incursus? So this is a blaster setup. The blasters have pretty nice tracking compared to other guns. So when we add attacker, Incursus, let's delete this Tristan. You can see he's at 44 DPS, and we can add the tracking disruptor with the tracking speed script to disrupt tracking speed. That just boosts all the cool stuff about this ship even further. And you can see that now it drops to 27, but he's got one drone, right? One drone that if you kill, his DPS drops to 7. Now you can just about tank 7 DPS with your passive shield defense. So once you kill his drone, you're going to have to pulse that overloaded small ancillary armor repair. You have to pulse that like once every minute or something. It'll last pretty much forever, but you still want to overload every cycle to get the most out of it. Don't pulse it until you're down to about 50% armor because you're taking so little DPS. You don't want to over-rep. But in this example, it just shows that when you're fighting with this ship, kill the drones first, because they're the only thing hitting you. And with a cruiser, it's even more pronounced. So kill the drones first, and then you're basically invincible to that ship. That ship can't do anything. And for this example here, this is a dual rep Incursus. He just set up to rep really hard. It's going to take a very long time to kill him. You're going to have to basically wait for him to run out of cap boosters, which is he's going to be able to fit like 20-something cap boosters. It's going to be a long fight, very long fight, but you'll win. So That's really cool. I love that slasher. I'm interested to see what I could do with that with maybe some more expensive stuff like links, drugs, implants. You might be able to get that signature down to around 20, 23 and just basically be untouchable. Unfortunately, links are about to get some big changes. At the same time, we get alpha clones, so that's a lot less likely to happen unless I do it like right now, but I doubt I have time. Anyways, that's really cool. I love this fit. This is probably my favorite out of all of the fits we have here. And just a reminder, all these fits will be on the website, so you can copy them and import them into EFT PIFA or into EVE Online so that you can fit them up in EVE Online. So that's that one. Next up is the Breacher. I couldn't have made this video without showing the Breacher. Breacher is a pretty popular ship because it's got a great ASB tank. It's got a 7.5% per level shield boost bonus, and that's since we're level 4, that's 30% more shield boost for us. That gives us 166, which at first glance is like, wow, that's amazing, but it's not. It's not amazing because it's very limited. You've got a duration of 2.55, so I don't like the Windows 10 calculator, by the way. You get 9 charges, 23 seconds. So 23 seconds of tank, and then this thing runs out, and you're pretty much just a very weak frigate with no tank at that point. So it's not thrilling, but it's nice, it's interesting. You're a built-in scramkite. Your speed and agility are really nice, almost as good as the slasher. Better agility than the slasher, I think, but a little bit slower, or maybe it isn't. Let's pull it back up. 1222, 4.9. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, better agility, a little bit slower. Signature radius, because you've got shield stuff, boosts it up to over 40. It's good. I mean, what you would do in this ship is you would set your orbit to 6K, probably, maybe 6.5 at most, and then you would scram web the target and try to avoid the DPS. Now, against something like that Tristan, you're going to lose. Against that Incursus I showed, since his range is so terrible, he's a perfect candidate for being scram-kited, because once you get past this 3.5K optimal plus fall off, 3.4K, he's going to do no damage at all pretty much. That's going to be a drop of 50% at optimal plus fall off, so we'll be doing 76 DPS at 3.4. At past 5K, I mean, he's going to be doing like 20 DPS or something ridiculous out at 6, 7K where you're at. It's, you know, going to be negligible. And you could even kill his drone and make it even more negligible. So this is a perfect target to use a scramkite against. Someone with blasters, very limited range that you can control range on. Since he doesn't have a afterburner or a web, he has no means of controlling range on you. And basically this ship would win against this ship if the pilot of this ship flew it right. If you allowed this ship to stay on top of you, you would die. But if you got your orbit out to 6.5 or set it to 6.5 and let it drift to about 7-ish, then you should be fairly good at killing him. Make sure your rockets are hitting, because rockets have to curve to go in, which means that even though you may be at 7K, you may be missing with your rockets because they're having to curve more than 7.6K to hit the target. Keep that in mind. So this setup will work, but it's not amazing, but it will work. Here we have a dual prop Republic Fleet Firetail. I used to fly this as my poor man's Dramiel back when Dramiels were absurdly expensive. It's a good ship. The DPS is low. You can see I have the guns overloaded here. I would obviously recommend, if you're going to spend the money on a ship like this, it's still pretty cheap now. I don't know what the price is, but if you're going to spend the money to buy all this, then why not just go ahead and get this 1 million ISK or 2 million ISK implant, the SB603. It gives you a nice little boost in DPS. And then if you're going to do that, you might as well go ahead and do the Surgical Strike 901. Get you an extra 1% for less than 1 million ISK. And now you're up to 142, and that's actually respectable. So, and there's more implants you can get that are less than 1 million ISK that'll give you little bonuses here and there. So, with all that, I think it's actually a pretty decent ship. Put the rocket launcher in between the guns and the actual fitting so they overload longer. You can overload them for pretty much the entire fight that way. They'll go for about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, I would say. You've got a medium shield booster buffer tank, shield buffer. Nice effective hit points for a frigate. Passive recharge kind of negligible, but it's there. Your speed's fast enough to catch an interceptor, and that's what this ship's for. It's not for faction warfare. Take it out to Null Sec and hang out 100k off station, 100k off a gate. Jump into a gate where there's a little gang and there's like one interceptor and the rest are bigger, slower ships, and burn off, make that interceptor chase you, turn in, kill that interceptor with this. And then if something gets a scram on you after you've killed the interceptor, you just overload your afterburner while doing a defensive scram on the guy scramming you, turn off his microwarp drive, overload your afterburner, and zip out, get outside of his scram range the moment you are. So you'd have to turn off that afterburner, not let it go another cycle after the overloaded cycle, which, you know, this is a reason why I don't train afterburner 5. I train it at level 4 to reduce the duration. Then overload the one cycle of your microwarp drive to just shoot out away from everything else and get yourself to a safe distance. That's what dual prop is. It's all about that tactic of getting yourself in and out of trouble fairly easily. So that's a fun ship for Null Sec there. I like that. And here is the Scram Kite Firetail, Arty Firetail. And this one is fairly good. The problem I have with it is the tracking is horrible, 0.1 for these Arties, but they do have a decent alpha of 600. That means they apply that entire 600 DPS at once, just one big shot. They do 91 DPS overall. You're going to want to set your keep at range on this. Keep at manages your transversal a lot better than orbit. Set your keep at to about 7 kilometers, I would say, to give you a little bit of a margin for error. You've got a 9K scram there. You could go 7.5 maybe. The further out you are, usually the better, so long as you don't lose your scram. Scram and web the target. Use your tracking disruptor with the optimal range script. So if you're fighting against another scram kite, he probably won't have a tracking disruptor, which means you're going to out-scram kite him by reducing his range down. Do I have another scram kite I can show you? I don't. Well, just to imagine this Tristan without drones. If we were to apply the optimal range tracking disruptor, he goes down from optimal plus fall off of 12.5 to 8.5. So if you're sitting out at around 7.5, 8K here, then he's doing about 50% of his gun DPS. If that's what most of his DPS was coming from, you would have effectively cut his DPS in half, giving you the large advantage in this fight. So I like that setup. And the same thing with the other one. What I would do here as far as implants is I would do that one. That's 1% more damage. 3% more damage. And I think it's this one. No. Here it is. It's tracking. It's a tracking 1% because you need it. And then, yeah, those would be the main ones. You could also do, I think it's an HG 1001, it's 1% armor, help marginally. Yeah, I think that's about it. And that would help you a little bit. So the problem with this ship is that your capacitor isn't that great, and that you're going to have to keep that in mind in the fight. You only got 38 seconds capacitor with this AER running, so most fights you want to try to make the fight to where that's not even having to run at all. I'm not super thrilled about this ship. It will win a lot of fights, but your capacitor is really bad, and I'm not sure if I'm happy with how bad that is. So, you know what would be better here? Let's just change this. That's no good. Let's see here. No, I probably can't change that. Off by too much to make a difference with a compact. That's just going to save me 1. So I'm not really sure. Maybe that's not the best setup, because you need to go with a passive fit, I think, to make it work, because that capacitor was terrible. I didn't realize that. So plates would be what you'd want to go with, but you can see we don't have the power go without downgrading our guns. The only other thing we could save on, we could do this. But then we're still off, so we're going to have to solve the problem by coming here, which loses some of our range. We've got good fall off, so we can probably survive that. And then, let's see. Nope, can't do that. We're already maxed out. I don't know if I want to reduce our DPS by dropping that. You could run a collision here too to boost your alpha, but this gives you a little bit more fire rate, which I think in this case is going to work. So actually, we're going to go with this fit here. I think this is better. Hold on, let's look at this. Yeah, we don't really need that. Okay. Just trying to see if there's a way I could get a rocket launcher on there. There probably is. Okay, that's 5774. I really like to optimize fits, try to get every little, not 400, every little scrap of, so that's fine, firepower out of them. Then go to rocket launchers. And just because I want you to do it the right way, we'll show it this way. And what do you know? We improved our fit, increased our DPS, and overall tank. It's going to be similar to if you had an AAR, but now you're much less cap hungry. And you're not going to have to worry about cap as much. So that's definitely an improvement. The biggest thing we had to give up is a little bit of speed, agility, and biggest thing was this range here. We had to give up 1.3 I think kilometers in optimal, but this thing's 7.6 anyway. So what you would want to do is you'd want to set your keep at to 6K or 6.5K, and that would work really nice, I think. And like I said, with the implants, you could easily get another 4% DPS, or another 4 DPS out of this, get it up to 110. So that works. Okay, I'll use this fit in the article. You can get that on eveproguides.com, my website. There's a link in the description just below this. Hope you enjoyed this video. Tomorrow, hopefully, maybe the next day, because it's usually a little bit harder for me to put the character in and build all the fits in one day. So tomorrow, the next day, I'm going to put out the Minmatar Alpha Clone video. And that should wrap up this video series. One more thing I wanted to show you before we go is the Gnosis. So I'd mentioned in my last video that the Gnosis is, so that's the passive one. This guy's not working because of this. That's the only thing keeping it from working is that gun. You can remove that or change it with something else. But the stats for the, let's do it on this one because it doesn't cause trouble. The stats on this one are the same as they are for the Caldari Alpha Clone. No difference. So you're going to be able to run level 4 missions in the Gnosis so long as nothing changes between now and November with a Minmatar Alpha Clone and a Caldari Alpha Clone. And I don't know if it's going to be level 4. Certainly level 3. I'm not sure about level 4. I'm going to have to have that, going to have to test that. So I'll see you guys in the next video.